Alrighty, so news of the week episode on this Saturday late afternoon, and while there's definitely some more MLS signings and also some transfer rumors that we talked about in the last news of the week episode turns out to take a 180, there was definitely some big news that came out of yesterday where it's official. Copa America 2024 will indeed be host in the US, and not only that, that is something that, in some way we kind of knew that it was going to be the case that Copa America was going to be playing in the US for the next edition. But there's also a big announcement that both CONMEBOL and CONCACAF have signed a strategic collaboration agreement with each other. So that means that both of these federations will work closely together. And this is definitely big. Not only for both of these confederation kind of create a partnership with each other, but more importantly for CONCACAF itself, and also the fact that I think we are going to see a situation where the national team and all these CONCACAF giants that are going to be playing in Copa America in the future. But also it has something to do with the club levels too, because it seems like they're creating a mini kind of tournament where you're going to have the best team in the CONMEBOL section playing against the best team in the CONCACAF region, and I believe they have like a 4-team kind of tournament, similar to what we see in the Club World Cup, where in the Club World Cup we have the best team from each of the confederation face off against each other. But it's just like kind of two of the best team, of course, face off against each other in this tournament. Though again, that's kind of the only thing we know for now. I'm not sure exactly how they're gonna pick the two best team. I mean, I'm assuming in terms of CONMEBOL, they'll probably pick the team that won the Copa Libertadores and the Sudamerica, and then in the CONCACAF region representing those two teams are probably going to be the team that wins CCL, and then there's that question of who exactly will be the other team. Maybe it could be the League Cup that I might assume that maybe be the other team that could be representing that little mini tournament. But yeah, I mean, this is definitely big news, and especially in terms of going back to talk about Copa America 2024 happening in the US. I mean, I mentioned before, as much as I know, this definitely doesn't sound really good, and especially with the way that people in South America are probably not happy about this, having a prestige kind of tournament and now taking away from them and moving into North America. This was always going to be the case, especially after the success that we saw in the Copa America Centenario back in 2016. You just had a feeling CONMEBOL was not going to just ignore the fact that they should have their prestige tournament be back hosting in the US, and knowing the fact that they can also make an extra buck out of it compared to hosting in South America. This of course is the case. Now of course for the future, let's just hope that this is not going to be the case for every single edition of Copa America that's going to be taking place in the US. But yeah, money of course will speak itself. I mean, in modern soccer or football, money is definitely a driven force for confederation to kind of change things up. But I think the other thing that is interesting about the Copa America 2024 is that despite the fact that the US will be hosting this tournament, they're not automatically qualified, and that is probably the biggest takeaway coming out of this, where that the US men's national team will have to earn their way to play in Copa America. And in some way, I'm kind of glad that is the case, because one of the things I mentioned with this national team, not only need more stronger competition, but they really need to earn the right and feel that pressure of being in kind of like a World Cup style tournament that we will see in Copa America, which by the way will be featuring 16 teams. Now, I don't know how exactly the qualification works. Only thing I know is that it's going to be taking place in the Nations League, in the 23-24 part of the Nations League that will decide who will be the 6th CONCACAF team that qualify for Copa America. But either way, it should be very interesting to see, and that again, hopefully the US will qualify for this tournament, and this will definitely be a really good wave for this pool of generational talent kind of players from the US men's national team to finally get some competitive games against some really good South American team, because as I talked about before, heading into the 2026 World Cup, there is a chance that the US could be able to get themselves in a much better position in terms of going deep in that tournament, especially playing on home soil. But also just the fact that I know right now the U.S. Soccer Federation is dealing with a bit of a turmoil But yeah, I'm assuming that turmoil and that fiasco is eventually going to done. And once they do get everything fixed up, they're definitely going to get to a point where they're going to build on thinking about this tournament and also thinking about the World Cup that's happening in 2026, which will arguably probably the most important World Cup that the U.S. will be entering, maybe since 94 when they hosted the World Cup on home soil. Now, moving on in terms of the next news, and now let's talk about some MLS signings because we had a couple of that in just these last couple of days. So, NYCFC has officially announced that they will be signing goalkeeper Matt Freese in exchange for $750,000 general allocation money and sell-on fees to the Philadelphia Union. Now, obviously, this happened right after when Toronto FC announced that they have signed NYCFC goalkeeper Sean Johnson off a free agency. And overall, in terms of these kind of blockbuster trade, I think overall every team kind of got the good end of the deal. I mean, for TFC getting a decent goalkeeper in Sean Johnson, one of the top 5 goalkeepers in the league, that will definitely help their goalkeeping situation that's been a mess for the past couple of seasons. Whereas for NYCFC getting Matt Freese, a guy that, doing his limited minutes with the Union, he definitely has the caliber to be a really good goalkeeper in MLS, and that, it's kind of unfortunate that he is stuck right behind probably the best goalkeeper in the league in Andre Blake. And also in the case for the Philadelphia Union, I mean, they get some general allocation money out of that, but most importantly, they would get some sell-on fees. Now, exactly, I don't know how much percent the sell-on fees is going to be, but in case if Matt Freese is going to be sold off to somewhere in Europe, the Union will at least get some part of that transfer, and that, again, it's a win-win for every team that is involved in this deal, and that of course includes the Philadelphia Union, and that's going to be interesting to see how they of course will do now that these two goalkeepers have found themselves in their respective players. And I will also say that Matt Freese probably is a more happier here goalkeeper joining a new team, because again, he was not going to get minutes if Andre Blake is going to be a regular starter, well, not just a regular starter, but pretty much a set-in-stone starter for the Philadelphia Union. But now finally get a chance for him to have the opportunity to shine. This is a big opportunity for Matt Freese to prove people and to show why he is definitely one of the upcoming rising star American goalkeeper in MLS. Now, moving on in the next news, we got Austin FC signing center back Amro Tarek from Al Masry SC. Now, I believe yesterday I did the season previews for Austin FC, and you notice I put the in terms of some of the players that they acquire, and one of the players I mentioned is Amro Tarek. Now, it turns out that I actually kind of spoiled that a little bit for Austin FC fans, because when I did that season preview for Los Verde, they actually have not officially signed Amro Tarek before. It was a rumor that they were getting pretty close in terms of acquiring him, and now it is official that they of course acquire him, and that, yeah, this is a guy that, he has spent a couple of spell in MLS for different teams, most recently the New York Red Bulls, and a player that could be a decent kind of utility back line kind of player. And knowing the fact that another thing I mentioned during the season preview for Austin FC of them needing maybe another center back to add the depth of this team, well, Amro Tarek will be a perfect way to solidify that, and that seems like the answer the question of the fact that are they going to add more depth in the defense, and there you go with them signing out Tarek, and a guy that, again, what's interesting about his career is that he seems like been moving back and forth in terms of Egypt and the U.S. I mean, I know he has Egyptian heritage, but it's kind of interesting that he's been moving back and forth throughout his career. But that being said, moving on in the next news, and speaking of defender, well, the Colorado Rapids, they signed Danish defender Andre Maxo on a DP deal, and actually it's not off a free agency. I actually wrote that wrong. They actually signed him from Danish club Bromby there. But yeah, this is definitely an interesting one, and my feelings in terms of signing defender on a DP deal, it's usually kind of something that you want to avoid, but knowing the fact that the Rapids have all 3 of their DP spot open, I don't think it kind kind of is that bad that they spent a DP kind of signing on a defender. And not to mention, that was one of the things that they desperately needed. I mean, the Rapids last season was having problem in terms of the back line, and that the defense was really regressing to a point where it looks nothing like the one from previous season. And now the fact that they've been able to address that by bringing Andres Maxo, who is a regular center back for Brøndby, one of the more well-known team in Danish soccer. Yeah, this I think could be a decent signing, and again, they better hope that it is a decent signing, because again, anytime when you sign a defender on a DP kind of deal, it is a bit risky, and that there's a reason why a lot of teams don't want to sign defender to a DP deal, because if they don't turns out to be well, then you just basically wasted a DP spot on that. But I don't know if there's also an option to buy down his contract, and if there is the case, then they can of course basically do that. But what I'm saying is that it's kind of very unorthodox to sign a player or a defender on a DP deal, and most of the time it just hasn't really quite worked out. But we'll see whether or not if this of course would work out for the Colorado Rapids. But moving on, in the next news, we got Inter Miami loaning Emerson Rodriguez to Santos Laguna. Now obviously Emerson Rodriguez, when I did the moving forward series of Inter Miami, I think I should have mentioned he probably was one of the more disappointing player for Inter Miami last season. I mean, last season he was a guy that, oh, by the way, I think in terms of disappointment, if I remember, I think I picked Robbie Robinson as a big disappointment, but I would easily say Emerson Rodriguez would be the same case, because yeah, he was really bad last season for Inter Miami, and to a point where it was kind of interesting that they decided to keep him for another season. But now he is basically going to be loaned to another team, and loaned to a team in Liga MX, which Inter Miami has started to have the habit in terms of loaning player down in Liga MX. We'll see whether or not if he, of course, would do well, and especially joining a team like Santos Laguna, a well-known team in Liga MX. It's going to be interesting to see whether or not if he is going to get more minutes there. Now, moving on in terms of the next news, and now to talk about some of the transfer rumor happening in MLS. Although the first one is actually not related to MLS, but more related to the U.S. men's national team, and one that I simply cannot just ignore, is the fact that there is now reports suggest that Weston McKennie is set to join Leeds United on loan and an option to buy at around £33 million. Now, the loan fee that Leeds United is going to have to pay is somewhere about £1.3 million. But yeah, Leeds United, as we have seen before, they are definitely going with a very MLS and kind of very American kind of approach. I mean, there's a reason why people have said that they are basically like the American representation of the Premier League, because they just have so many well-known American player in Brendan Aronson, Tyler Adams, and not to mention an American head coach and maybe future U.S. men's national team head coach Jesse Marsch in charge. And now adding Weston McKennie, they'll just kind of solidify a very American kind of way that Leeds United is approached. Now, that being said, we'll see how, of course, he is going to do, and especially the fact that Weston McKennie, during his time with Juventus, I haven't heard exactly how well he's been doing there, and whether if he is still getting regular minutes with the team. But knowing the fact that Juventus is kind of going through a bit of a crisis right now, the moment, it's not surprised that Weston McKennie wants out, and that, again, joining Leeds United, a team that he will be part of some of his fellow teammate there in the national team. It would work perfectly. And I think this is also good for the U.S. men's national team, because, when you have the national team, you usually have players kind of plays for different club. But if you have a team that maybe have some part of your team that are playing for the same club, it will definitely add extra bonus in terms of the chemistry level, because when you have them all playing the same club, they see every day, and that they can have that good connection when they play in the national team. And that's something I don't think a lot of people have been talked about, but it's secretly a very, very big thing that you want to have in the national team too. But moving on, in the next news, we have Inter Miami report to sign Ukrainian center back Serhiy Kirstoval I think that's how you pronounce it. I might have completely butchered it, but they're going to sign him from Shakhtar Donetsk. Now, if this move does happen, I think he is the first Ukrainian player to ever play in MLS, because I don't recall there's ever been a Ukrainian player that have come to MLS, and especially, you know, for Inter Miami, knowing the fact that they need to booster their defense, which is something that was a big weakness last season, it's not a big surprise that they decided to approach him. And that, again, I don't know how good he, of course, is. I mean, I'm assuming he's pretty good because he does play in one of the more well-known team in the Ukrainian league, that is Shakhtar Donetsk. But yeah, you know, we'll see whether or not if this deal, of course, would get over the line, and also if he does get over the line, we'll see how well he's going to do and whether he's going to be a regular starter. And also, the reason why I say whether or not if this deal does get over the line is because for these past couple of days, we have definitely had some transfer rumors that we talked about in the last news of the week, or really just transfer rumor that was mentioned a couple of days that has took a bit of a 180. And one of those, including Atlanta United, who was looking to try and sign Celtic striker Gio Kemakis from them, and that they actually submit a loan offer with an option to buy to get this guy. But unfortunately, it seems like Celtic basically said no. They rejected that deal, and that it seems like instead he is actually going to be going to the J League with Urawa Reds instead. And that, yeah, I mean, that's something that for Atlanta United, it's kind of frustrating because, you know, they think that he could be a decent player that could replace the legendary footstep that Joseph Martinez left to this team, and that, you know, that as the offseason go, they're gonna definitely be starting to get a little bit desperate in terms of finding a number 9, because as I mentioned in the season preview, the only legitimate number 9 that they have is Jackson Conway. And this is no disrespect toward Jackson Conway, but I'm pretty sure he's not going to be a guy that you could say that is deserved to be a guy that maybe is a regular starter for this team. Even if he has scored some decent goals and scored some big goals. I mean, the most recent one I remember was him scoring against Copa America in CCL. But yeah, he's definitely not the answer in terms of that number 9 issue that they have after Joseph Martinez have left, and now they're going to have to dig deep, and almost in a sense that they're getting into desperation mode, and maybe even thinking about putting Luis Araujo back in that number 9 position, because I know that he also plays in that position at time, but ideally I think he also would love to play on the wing area instead of just solely become a center for this team. Now, there is also reports suggesting that Albert Valise will actually now not come to LAFC, and this, of course, is according to Tom Bogert, that mentioned that, you know, originally it looks like there was interest that Albert Valise was going to come to LAFC, but what's also interesting that he said, or what Tom Bogert said, is the fact that there's other MLS team is still interested in Albert Valise, and that's very interesting to see because, you know, as I mentioned with Albert Valise, he is going to be a guy that, you know, I know if he does come to LAFC, he's more used for depth piece, but he's kind of one of those guys that if he does join other team around MLS, there's no doubt that he's going to get regular minutes. I mean, what we saw him doing his time with the Houston Dynamo was nothing short of amazing, and that I'm pretty sure for a lot of teams that definitely need help on the wing area, Albert Valise is definitely a great answer to do. And again, another guy that is a proven MLS player that does well on the wing area. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see which team is going to be still interested now that it seems like LAFC decided to not pursue this transfer, and that I think that maybe is a relief to a lot of team, especially a lot of team in the Western Conference, because LAFC is already very stacked, and that adding Albert Valise just adds more fuel into an already golfing flame that this team it has on the attacking end. Now, the Colorado Rapids, they also had a rumor that took a 180, as there actually is not going to be signing Patrick Pence after he elected to join Bayer Leverkusen in the Bundesliga. Now, this is definitely disappointing because, again, this is a guy that, as I mentioned, could be useful for the Colorado Rapids and could be a huge upgrade to the current goalkeeper that they have with William Yarbrough. I mean, again, I'm not saying that Yarbrough is a bad goalkeeper, but last season he definitely regressed a bit, and that this would have definitely been a good upgrade for the Rapids if they would have got him, but unfortunately it seems like that is not the case. And as I mentioned, he decided to elect to stay in Europe and decided to join a bigger club in the Bundesliga, that is Bayer Leverkusen. And then moving on into the last transfer rumor, the Dynamo is in advanced talk to sign left back Javincio van der Kers from Utrecht. Now, if this deal does complete, well, the Dynamo, it's safe to say that they have definitely transitioned to a team where they're starting to shape up their core. And I've been very impressed in terms of some of the signings and some of the pieces that they add in terms of now finally getting to the point of the rebuild where, you know, now they're going to try to shape up a core that could be decent. Now, whether or not if that, of course, would be the case and whether that's going to be successful, time will tell. But at least adding some pieces, and especially adding a guy that I think will be the replacement for Adam Lundqvist, would definitely be it's a great start in terms of this team that, you know, again, when you look at all the pieces that the Dynamo has, if all of them tends to hit well, I wouldn't say all of them, but at least most of them turns out to be well, this team could have an outside shot in terms of making the playoffs heading into this upcoming season. And then finally, in the last news of the week, we got Florian Jungwirth announced his retirement and is actually going to be joining the Vancouver Whitecaps coaching staff. Now, obviously, Florian Jungwirth is a guy that definitely has in terms of the one of the team that I root for, which is the San Jose Earthquakes. I mean, a lot of Quakes fans will never forget what Flo Jungwirth has done, and I've mentioned many times he's been a guy that has just been a solid rock in that center back position for many years for the Quakes, even when the Quakes were struggling. But obviously I can understand why they eventually did move on from him, because he was starting to lose his luster compared to when he came into the league in 2017. And I'm kind of a little disappointed that maybe he could have come back to the Quakes and maybe joined the coaching staff there, but it seems like he's elected to stay with the Whitecaps and join Vanni Sartini coaching staff, which I don't think that's a bad coaching staff to do, especially the energy that Vanni Sartini brings to this team. So yeah, you know, obviously Florian Jungwirth's been a great career, and certainly I will forever remember him to be a very decent player for the Quakes, but also, you know, just in terms of his MLS career, you know, he has spent a short time for the Whitecaps, but most of the one will be remembered during his time with the Quakes. But there you have it. That is pretty much it in terms of this News of the Week episode. As always, let me know in the comments below, what do you think of these news? And if there's any news that I didn't mention here on the board, let me know in the comments below. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button. And yeah, I, of course, will see you guys next time.